so you guys can view the presentation in real time. Hopefully you guys can see this. Curtis, yes?
Yes, ma'am. We're good to go.
All righty, let's rock and roll. Okay, you're exactly where you need to be, and if not, then Curtis will get you guys the recording as well as the slides. So we've got an hour and a half together Eastern time right now. It's a little bit after 2, and we're together until 3:30. Again, if you have questions as I'm going through the material, please go ahead and type in your questions and we'll get to them at the end. I've allotted some time for that. So here is our agenda. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself so you know who I am and why I am somewhat of an authority on this topic. We'll talk about GSA, just the General Services Administration as a whole, and then we'll look at more details on the GSA schedule, talk about the requirements, and then I've got some recommendations and resources for you, and I'll make some concluding remarks. This is a 3-part series, so we're going to be back here again tomorrow, which is Tuesday, and then Wednesday is the final day, so it's a 3-part series. Tomorrow is more of the details on the proposal preparation, really the nitty-gritty there, some strategies on negotiations, how to interact with the contracting officer, that sort of thing. And then on Wednesday, we'll talk about post-award requirements, kind of what that should look like as far as a best case scenario for any companies. I didn't put anything in here about the VA schedules. Veterans Affairs also has a contract vehicle, and we do help with that. But today we're specifically focused on the GSA schedule. So who am I and why am I here? I've been in government contracting for 20 plus years. I've got the gray hair and definitely some wrinkles to show for it. My business is based in downtown DC, and our main focus is helping companies navigate federal contracting. We put on events. We've got a newsletter, free newsletter that reaches a lot of government contractors, where we post information about educational seminars, various networking events, matchmaking, and then we also include news about the defense and civilian sector. So I'd suggest if you want, you can go ahead and sign up for that. Specifically regarding videos on GSA schedules, we've got plenty of those. 90% of them, it's me speaking. I think occasionally we had a guest speaker, but if there's anything else that you're interested in regarding government contracting, we have 700 and I think we're almost up to 740 webinars again on our YouTube channel. I think I've got a slide on that. Here's our YouTube channel. There's the link. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe or watch the videos, and we've got some playlists there, which is where you're going to find all of the GSA schedule webinars. Again, they're also free. Our newsletter you can find on our website. When I say our, I'm just talking about my business, not the VA. So again, that's also a freebie. Top right hand corner, you'll see in bright yellow, newsletter sign up. Okay, let's go ahead and just dig in here to the material. Who is GSA? General Services Administration. They are non-appropriated agency, and that's a little bit false because they actually receive less than 1% of congressional / taxpayer funding. They are more or less self-funded through the Schedules program, but then they also have these divisions, which you should just at least be aware of. PBS stands for Public Building Service, that budget there. Or they oversee, I'm sorry, $500 billion worth of kind of they're the main real estate for the federal government. So buildings that you go in, if you've been to the Smithsonian or any of the monuments, those are overseen by General Services Administration. The piece that we're talking about is FAS. They have that highlighted, Federal Acquisition Service. This is where the GSA Schedules program falls under. And they oversee about 65 billion worth of transactions. And then the Technology Transfer Service, those are going to be the websites as well as like FedRAMP, 18F, USA, spending.gov. A lot of these are maintained, overseen. The content is directed more or less by GSA. So again, on the real estate side, they've got buildings. They also have a fleet of vehicles. So they do a little bit of everything. And so how do they get their funding? Again, through the real estate holdings as well as the schedule holders. So anyone that holds a GSA schedule contract has to pay GSA 0.75% of their GSA schedule sales. And we'll talk about that in more detail later when we get into the pricing, but and don't worry, there's not a test at the end. Overall, they've got several thousand employees, primarily based in downtown DC, but they do have field and satellite offices. The office in DC is at 1800 F Street Northwest, not too far from where we are located. You can see their budget there, and whoever is at the helm of GSA is a political appointee that has to go through congressional approvals. That's who GSA is. I mentioned this industrial funding fee, which again is how GSA operates, and this will be kind of what we'll talk about this in more detail tomorrow when we talk about strategy and pricing with GSA and price negotiations, and they're motivated by the dollar. So again, what the schedule holders pay to GSA is 0.75%, so it's less than 1% of the GSA schedule sales. If you have 0 GSA schedule sales, then you owe GSA nothing. Okay, so that's who they are. That's kind of in a pretty quick nutshell. Now let's go ahead and talk about the actual schedules and what is a GSA schedule. So the best way to describe it is it's a mechanism for the government to purchase from you. It's for products, services, software. The only thing that's excluded is going to be construction services. You absolutely do not need a GSA schedule to sell to the government. This is another way to frame it, is to say it's a vendor shortlist, and you've got roughly about 20,000 companies that hold a GSA schedule. And the entire federal government is allowed to purchase off of the GSA schedule. Additionally, if anyone on the line or listening to the recording is selling to the UN, the World Bank, the IMF, the IFC, the IADB, Red Cross, some state and local governments actually have authority and GSA privileges. So depending upon who you're selling to, where you're selling, you might be able to get a kill 2 birds with 1 stone, or a bigger bang for your buck. Sometimes you may need to alert the organizations like the UN, the World Bank, that they actually are allowed to purchase through the schedule, but it can be a way in some ways to block out or limit your competition. Particularly if you have a schedule and they don't, and you're selling to some of these organizations outside of the mainstream federal government. And it does make the procurement process easier. Why is that? Because the companies that are on the schedule have been checked out in advance. So they've been vetted. The companies have been vetted on financials, on their past performance, on their technical capabilities. There's a bunch of hoops that you jump through, and forms that you fill out, and documentation that's provided to show GSA that you are in fact a credible source of supply for the products, the services, or the software that you are proposing to provide to them. In addition to that, the main focus of the GSA schedule is for GSA to secure your absolute lowest price. So if you're selling widgets and you typically sell your widgets at a discounted rate of 20% to your dealers and resellers, or if you're selling services and you typically give a 20 to 25% discount to nonprofits, then GSA will want those same discounts. There's additional information that we'll talk about in the pricing part, particularly because it is the most important and the main focus of the schedule. So it is, in fact, the contract with terms and conditions that you need to abide by. when you first get the award, after you've submitted your proposal, have gone through the negotiations, GSA awards the contract. The initial award is for 5 full years. After the 5 years, there are 3 5-year renewal periods. So if you exercise all of the options, it becomes a 20-year contract. And I'll just make a side note here that if anybody is, let's say, an 8A certified company or considering 8A, 8A is a 9-year program, and that's basically once and done. So after you get on to the 8A program and you graduate, you're not allowed to reapply and get back onto to the 8A program. With the GSA schedule, they actually encourage you around year 17 and a half or year 18 to reapply and get back on, particularly if you have any long-term multi-year contracts, BPAs, through your schedule. But in essence, if you do get on and you meet all the requirements, again, because it is a contract, then it's basically good for the 20 years that you've got it. And we'll talk about the compliance on Wednesday, which will be part of that post-award meeting the terms and conditions. Okay, so the sales quota is part, again, it's a contract, so you're going to have to abide by various terms. And GSA has a sales quota because you are costing them money, administrative dollars. People have to maintain your paperwork, and there's systems that have to be maintained, and salaries, et cetera, et cetera. So here are the numbers that you need to meet. And this was changed, I think about a year or so ago, due to COVID. So years 1 through 5, regardless of the number of special item numbers that you have, and we'll talk about that in a second, you've got to bring in at least $100,000 through your schedule, and then 125 for each of the subsequent years. Now, if you have a $5 million contract with the Air Force or Department of Agriculture or whoever it is, GSA, and it's not through your schedule, GSA doesn't care. That $5 million or the money that they're looking for needs to be through your schedule. That should kind of be a given, but sometimes we get the question, so I thought to emphasize it here just a little bit. So again, even if you have a $5 million sale with, let's say, even the executive office of the president, doesn't matter if it's not through the schedule. So again, the $100,000 and the 125 for each of those need to be through your schedule. If not, what happens? Well, GSA will more or less tap you on the shoulder. You'll get a letter that says, hey, you're not meeting your quota. What are you going to do to meet your quota? And so typically what is helpful at this juncture, if you happen to find yourself in this predicament, is that you submit the list of the RFPs that you've responded to through your schedule, what other pending opportunities you have, the sales force, meaning human bodies that you have that are allocated specifically to federal, and then within that, a subset that's specifically dedicated to GSA. So just know that these are things that they take seriously, and if you don't meet that quota, GSA will in fact cancel your schedule. If your schedule gets canceled, you're going to have to wait a year to reapply and get back on. On that note, you also want to maintain all of the documentation that you've received from them, because you'll need to submit that should you decide to get back on. And Curtis, I'm happy to pause and take a question if anything has come in.
1 second, Jennifer. I was just handling some things in the chat, but we did have one question that came in. If I'm an authorized dealer on my distributor GSA schedule, what would the additional benefit be of having my own schedule to sell exactly the same items?
Well, you'll be in charge more or less of your own profits. And so and then you can open up yourself to other manufacturers. always being the one that holds the direct contract with the government will most of the time give you more leverage, but I'd encourage the questioner to investigate some and research the pricing that you're providing as a dealer or reseller, and see if there are any other dealer resellers out there, and kind of where your pricing would come in if you were going direct. And then maybe you don't have a big enough sales force, meaning humans, to make it worth your while being the direct schedule holder. But those, again, I think could be evaluated kind of on a case-by-case basis. So thank you for the question. Okay, so of the almost 20,000 vendors on this schedule, more than half of them have 0 sales through their schedule. Now, again, I'm not saying this to scare you. These are just facts. So you may want to think, why do the majority of the companies not have any GSA schedule sales? Now, they may have 5, 6, 10 million, whatever that number is, 500,000 in government contracts, but not just through the schedule. So somebody either sold them something that they don't need, and that unfortunately happens a lot with other companies that do what we do. There are also companies that have this, I'll call it a strategy, but it's really not a strategy, of build it and they will come, meaning let's get on the schedule and then start selling. Where in my 20 years of experience, that's kind of a backwards way of looking at it. You should be conducting market research through SAM.gov, USA Spending, any of the public websites, or maybe you're subscribed to one of the data aggregators out there. And you could do your research that way to find out which of your customers, or who is your ideal customer and how do they purchase. So you don't want to be a statistic, and you don't want to go through this process either with a consulting firm or putting the proposal together yourself, only to be, again, a statistic. So as far as how are the schedules organized, because all the schedule holders are on the GSA schedule, and what separates companies is really by what they do. So there's something called SIN, special item numbers, and these are alphanumeric, about 5 to 6 alphanumeric characters. Some of them are a little bit longer than that, that I further identify what it is you're offering. So for anyone that's on the line that's familiar with NAICS codes, North American Industry Classification System, it's very, very similar to NAICS. And in fact, some of the SINs are very, very similar to the NAICS. They may have a letter or a number at the end, or something kind of reversed. Some of them actually match exactly, but they are different. So as you're pursuing the schedule, the first thing that you'll do after reading the solicitation and making sure that you meet the requirements is identify the SIN number or SIN numbers that your products, services, or software fall under. GSA schedules are also one of many, many ways that the government can purchase. It's not the only way. And it is also one of many, many, many contract vehicles that are out there. So the next few slides are going to kind of dissect what I said here. So first we'll look at the SIN numbers, then we're going to talk about the procurement options, and then we'll talk about contract vehicles. Okay, so here's just a screenshot from the latest update of GSA's special item numbers. And these are the various columns. The ones I encourage you to pay attention to are the ones we have highlighted here in gold, which will be the SIN number. And then you can see it, sometimes they do correspond to the NAICS code, and then the SIN title, then the SIN description. So I'm just going to go with the middle of the screen, which is the 54151S. It's a pretty popular SIN. It's for IT professional services. If anybody on the line remembers the old days, it used to be SIN 132-51, still for the same thing, IT professional services. The NAICS code is 541519. So similar, not the same. What you do want to make sure, though, if that is your SIN number, that you've got the NAICS code in your SAM.gov registration. So these will be companies that are providing systems engineers, these sort of kind of IT professional services. Okay, and then I said we are going to talk about that GSA is one of many, many, many procurement options. So this slide is probably one of my favorites, and it really just highlights the importance or lack of importance of GSA. So how does the federal government purchase? And the bulk of how the federal government purchases is through full and open competition. Sometimes you'll see it as FNO. Basically what that means is the RFPs, requests for proposals, that you see on sam.gov, or RFIs or RFQs or whatever it is you're looking at. So that is the bulk of where the activity is taking place. There are also contract vehicles, and I'm kind of working on the far left-hand side of the screen and just kind of going down the list. And these numbers aren't exact, and these numbers are going to be different for your specific product, service, or software. And you should actually have these numbers. That will kind of be your homework or takeaway for today. So what are department and agency vehicles? We're going to talk about that in a second, but I've got another slide that just kind of gives you some of those examples. So then you've got the GSA schedule. I put 12%. It's typically somewhere between 10 and 15. Again, it's going to vary based on your specific solution. Set-asides. These are going to be contracts that are set aside for women-owned, veteran-owned, hub zone, 8A, Alaska Native. The list goes on and on for the checkboxes. Simplified acquisition. These are going to be small business procurements. For anything that is, I think the threshold is now 350. And then if it's construction, I want to say it's 750, but now it might be $1 million. I'm not sure I'm remembering those numbers correctly. Sole source means that there is just one supplier of whatever the solution is on the planet in the universe. And OTAs, other transaction authorities. This is just another way that the government purchases. These are non-FAR procurements. FAR is the Federal Acquisition Regulation. I'm not sure, who is has kind of advanced degree here today in government contracting or who doesn't. If anything on this left-hand side does not make sense to you, or I'm speaking in too many acronyms, if you navigate over to our website, hover over the tab that says webinars, and we have at least 30 plus webinars on OTAs. We've got webinars on sole source, simplified acquisition, everything there on that list. Okay. Then I said that GSA is also one of many contract vehicles. So these are some past and current contract vehicles. So NASA, yes, they can use the GSA schedule. They can also put things out for full and open competition, but they have their own contract vehicle called NASA SOUP. Navy has something called Seaport E. Army has ITES, DHS has Eagle, State has DIPS, and there are other, these are just kind of samples. Some of them have been sunset. Some of them still have a heartbeat, are in various iterations or versions. So why am I telling you this? Not to confuse you, but simply to remind you that you really need to be to be successful in this very competitive market. You need to be very specific about who is your customer and how do they purchase. Do they prefer to purchase through the GSA schedule? And I'll just go back here. So you should have these numbers. Where it says department or agency vehicles, the second, it's in red under full and open competition. That is basically what the slide is. So if you're selling to the Navy and you heard that DOD is, the biggest spender, spends the most through GSA, and you just get on the GSA schedule thinking that that's going to be your solution, you're going to be mistaken. You need to have a human relationship with your prospect to find out, is that even how they prefer to purchase? They may not like the schedule. They may be going to another contract vehicle to make their purchases. So as I mentioned, and I can't mention enough, if nothing else, if there's only one slide that you need today, this is it. Who is your customer and how do they prefer to purchase, specifically your solution? If you just say that Department of Agriculture loves the GSA schedule, and I don't know if they do or not, it doesn't really matter. Uh, if Department of Agriculture is your target for whatever reason, what is it that you are selling? And just because they purchase a lot on GSA, are they purchasing your solution on GSA? How do you get that data? I've got some resources in a later section of today's presentation. Okay, so as far as the GSA schedule and how you get on, you would download the solicitation, and you'll be evaluated, as I alluded to earlier in the presentation, on a few criteria. Financial strength, they're looking at your balance sheet and income statement. Do you have a healthy financials? Do you are you a profitable company? Second behind that, and this is the primary focus again is pricing, as you can see here, but they also want to make sure that what you're proposing to GSA is something that you have capabilities in selling, that you've got past performance, that you have customers that will vouch for you in the various questionnaires that you're going to have to submit to GSA. But the primary focus is your pricing. So in the event that you're a young company and your pricing isn't competitive, or maybe the first 3 or 4 years of your business, you've been a subcontractor and your rates have just been dictated to you by the prime, and they're very low and they're not profitable, and you're going to have to disclose that to GSA, and that makes up the bulk of your business. This may not be the right time to pursue the schedule. Getting the education on it is very wise and smart, and you just tuck it away for a time when, after your rates have gotten to a point where you can be profitable and getting on the schedule makes sense. Again, the pricing is the biggest piece of the schedule. So if you're not ready to kind of play in the waters, the pricing waters where the bulk of the other schedule holders are, this may not be the right time. So we were talking about the special item numbers. There are 384, actually it might be 324. And what happens is, again, you identify the sin that you're going to pursue, and then after you're on the schedule, you will be competing with the other companies within your sin, within your same sin, for opportunities. So the reason I put this in here, that it's more fierce competition, is because in fact it is. So the companies that are on the schedule within your sin have also jumped through the hoops, filled out the forms, passed the test of financial strength, of past performance, and your pricing is all going to be pretty much similar. So with that more fierce competition, what's the variable that can sway the scale one way or the other? If it's not some sort of unique technical capability that you have, it's going to be relationship. So you're absolutely going to need a human being that not only understands your business, that understands the federal government, but also that understands GSA and how to navigate it, how to leverage it, and how to position it for success. A common myth is that proposals don't need to be written because you're on the schedule. You've already written the proposal to get on to GSA, so it's now just kind of checking a box and bidding on things. That is false. You will still need to write proposals. This obviously is going to be more relevant for, let's say, the software and services companies versus product companies, but just know that that is the case. The big takeaway here is just that your competition may be smaller set of eyeballs are looking at opportunities, but you're playing in the big leagues here. This is not, street hockey. This is the NFL. So, or I'm sorry, what's the hockey team? Or the hockey league? It's whatever the professional hockey league is. Sorry. Okay. So let's now talk about the actual requirements, and I'm going to get into more details tomorrow at the same time. So this is just really a high-level overview, but let me pause since we're here at a new chapter, Curtis, and see if anything has come in. I'll take a sip of water as well.
Hey, Jennifer, thank you. I was just about to stop you for a second and ask you, could you answer a couple of questions right quick? The first question that came in, somebody wanted to know if there is a template that they can use for the past performance ladder.
For the past performance, yeah, all the documents are in the solicitation. You can find the solicitation on sam.gov. So just the GSA schedule is a, I'll call it an open, and we're gonna talk about that on, I think, the next slide, actually. Yep, sam.gov, there's the solicitation number. If you go there, you'll download the solicitation just like you would any RFP, and all of the documentation is there.
Thank you. I think you talked about some sales quotas earlier.
Yes.
Somebody asked, are these sales quotas yearly or within those 5-year blocks?
They are within the 5-year block. So year 1 through 5, you need to bring in a total cumulative of $100,000 through your schedule. Year 6 through 10, year 11 through 16, 15, and then year 16 through 20. Those have a sales quota of 125, again, for the full 5 years.
Thank you.
Yep, I think the total comes to, I think it's like 475 is the total for 20 years.
If you have multiple GSA schedules, are you required to maintain the sales quotas for each schedule?
So you will only be on one GSA schedule. You may have multiple special item numbers, and the sales quota is not per SIN, not per special item number. It's just for the schedule. So you can have 300 special item numbers, which is a very extreme example and highly unrealistic. Your sales quota is still going to be the 100,000 for the year 1 through 5, and then 125 for the other years.
Thank you. Question came in and said, does the GSA schedule only apply for federal agencies, not local government or state government? Correct?
Yep, so I kind of talked about this, which the answer is the entire federal government has the ability to purchase off of the GSA schedule. You have some quasi-government entities, the United Nations, the World Bank, the IMF, the IFC, the IADB, the Red Cross, and then some select state and local governments. GSA actually has a state and local rep or group. I know there's at least probably 2 people, I think, if not more, who kind of handle that. And then you'll have states like California and Texas. California has something called CMAS, just the letter C, MAS, California Multiple Award Schedule, and Texas has TexMAS, Texas Multiple Award Schedule. And they will, I'll say this in quotations, grandfather in your GSA schedule. Now there's paperwork and hoops that you have to jump through, but for example, we had a client, an Italian company that manufactured walk-through metal detectors that were used at federal buildings, courthouses, which were state and local, universities. You can think of all the various applications where these products could be used. And so not only do we help them get onto the schedule, the GSA schedule, but we also then help them get onto the CMAS and the Texas multiple award schedule. So they will pull in your GSA rates to get onto like their own contract vehicle. And you kind of have to go through. At one point, we started a project where like, let's get a list of all the counties and the states and get a list of, you know, who can and who cannot purchase off the schedule. And again, I think I said this earlier, oftentimes there could be an educational process with your sales rep or whoever is pitching your product, service, or software to the state and local government or UN, World Bank. It just depends on how savvy of a procurement person you have on the other side.
Awesome. Thank you. And we'll answer the rest of the questions later. So this is the last one I asked, so you can
Okay.
continue. This question may be answered later on, but what is the benefit of becoming a schedule holder with the GSA?
Sure. So that's kind of what today's overarching theme is. You know, you can't give a blanket answer for that. It's like asking somebody that's selling a red convertible car. Guy comes in and says, you know, what's the advantage of this red convertible? And maybe the sales rep says, well, I see you're single, and you know, chicks love red convertibles, and you'll meet your dream girl by driving this red convertible Corvette or whatever it is. But let's say a different person walks in. My 80-year-old mother, I don't think she's going to want a red convertible Corvette. So it's really specific to your company. The advantage is, you know, if you have certain things in place, if your customer prefers to purchase, you know, from you through the schedule, then that's the benefit. It shouldn't be something that you get and then start selling. You should really do the homework upfront to find out who, you know, where's the path of least resistance to sell your solution, and get very specific to not just, oh, our product or our service is used by Department of Energy, or our product is used by HHS or whomever it is. Drill down to the actual solicitation. Look at, well, I've got more slides on this, so let me just continue on if that's okay. And if I didn't answer anyone's question as thoroughly as you were expecting, just please type it in. I'm happy to stay on the line a little bit longer to answer those for you guys. So to get onto the schedule, to get onto this list, you first need to download the RFP, the request for proposal. So it is a solicitation. And you'll find that again on sam.gov. They have all of the documents there. There's the solicitation number. All you have to do is plug it in. There is no due date. So it is an open and rolling RFP. So where most RFPs will have proposals are due at, you know, Friday at 3 o'clock or whatever it is, there is not a due date with GSA. So if when GSA makes changes or updates, if they want to add a special item number for, let's say, you know, things happen in the world, we're going to add a special item number that covers AI. Then what they will do is update what's called refresh number. This is pretty important because right now GSA is on refresh 23. 24 is due out any moment, and it may have actually happened yesterday, or I'm sorry, today, or end of last week. Anyway, the refresh number is important because if you download the solicitation, your team or just you or whomever it is filling out the proposal paperwork, and you've got, you know, all your templates, and you go to submit, but GSA is, let's say, made some updates to the refresh number. Maybe they're now on refresh 27. And so there could be a new template for the price proposal. There could be a new template for the authorized negotiator. There could be a new question that's asked in one of the sections on trade agreement acts or whatever it is. So you want to be cognizant of the refresh number. So as you log into sam.gov and you're tracking the solicitation, make sure you check the box that you are notified of the updates. So just be aware of that, because that could throw some documentation that you have into the non-compliant bucket, and that could be cause for GSA to actually reject your proposal outright. So upon receipt of it, they could just say, this is outdated, like they're using an old refresh number and old forms, and a lot of times they will not sometimes there's not a human component to the review process. Sometimes there is. So just be cognizant of the refresh number. Here's the screenshot of what it looks like on sam.gov. And you've got the solicitation number right there. So within any proposal response, you're going to have the three main sections: administrative, technical, and pricing. I'm going to go through each of those, and I'm just trying to keep an eye on the time as well. So in the administrative section, again, tomorrow we'll go through these in more detail. We want your last 2 years balance sheet and income statement. So a full 24 months, you probably want to be showing a profit and not any loss. If you were deciding to submit, let's say you start the paperwork at the beginning of this year and you get ready to submit in March or April, then I would do your 2020, let me think here, 2023 and 2024 balance sheet and income statement plus your year-to-date 2025. These do not need to be audited. They can be a simple printout from your QuickBooks, FreshBooks, whatever accounting system you use. If they are audited, great. And then if something comes back, if you are showing significant losses, there are some things that happen after you submit your proposal, some additional financial scrutiny that your proposal will receive, which could potentially end you up in a rejection or a withdrawal situation. There are two forms here, the readiness assessment and the pathway to success. I would highly encourage you to hop over to the Vendor Support Center, vsc.gsa.gov. VSC again stands for Vendor Support Center. These are great little tests that GSA has devised. The readiness assessment, I would say, will probably take you about an hour and maybe an hour and a half to complete. The pathway to success, give yourself 30, 35 minutes to get through that one. But they will ask you questions about the GSA schedule and what SINs are you pursuing and how many vendors within your SIN have 0 sales. And as you download these Excel spreadsheets and you're counting all the zeros, this will be a little bit of a reality check, perhaps a wake-up call to make you say, why am I really getting onto the schedule? So the benefit is that the government makes it easier for them to purchase from you, but if that's not how your specific customer intends to purchase your specific solution, then don't go that direction. Let the data define where you're going to spend your time and resources. Okay, that was a little tangent, sorry. And the other pieces here are the agent authorization letters. If you're using a consulting firm like us, you would list us here in this agent authorization letter. You also want a cover letter, as well as your SAM record, your FAR and DFARs. Make sure that you have the DFARs listed in there. Okay, on the technical side, I'm going to just do the first two real quick, the corporate narrative and the quality control. These are GSA forms, meaning that there are specific questions that they want you to answer. The corporate narrative is pretty much just what you would think it is. How long have you been in business? What's basically like the genesis of the company? What's the solution that you're providing? How long have you been doing it? Those sort of questions. There's about, 6 or 7 questions there. Quality control, same thing, GSA form, about 6 or 7 questions. They're not looking for you to upload your quality control document. They're just going to ask, like, who is the person in charge of quality control? What do you guys do when there's an error with a client, and how is it resolved? How do you handle multiple projects at the same time? So these are GSA forms. Again, you could find them within the solicitation, and it's really the way that you actually answer those is through a series of kind of cutting and pasting answers into the GSA platform, which we'll talk about tomorrow. There are some questionnaires that will go to your customers that you send to your customers. Your customer then sends it back to you. You compile them and upload those into the GSA e-offer platform. Now, of the 300 plus special item numbers, some SINs have specific requirements that other SINs do not. So if you're typing in a question for me now, or maybe you already did, asking what's the specific requirement for SIN number, insert whatever number. I've been doing this for 20 years. The SINs have been reworked over the years. I don't have them all memorized, but generally speaking, for the most part, most SINs, again, there are many exceptions, will require what GSA calls a project experience. And that project experience is a contract that you've worked on within the last 3 years that is relevant to the SIN. You'll need a copy of the contract, dates, signatures, dollar amounts. The statement of work is really what they're trying to extract here. And a narrative that describes the work. The narrative is answering, it's a GSA form. You'll be answering, I think it's about like 8 or 9 questions about the actual contract. The project experience can be a contract that you had with the government. It could be a contract that you had with a church. It could be a contract that you had with a nonprofit, any other organization. So it does not need to be federal government. However, if you do have federal experience, I would highly encourage you to use that here if it's relevant and if it fits within the time frame that GSA is looking for. So again, for the most part, most SINs are only going to require one contract that you've worked on that's relevant to the type of work that you're proposing to GSA. For companies that are on the line today that are selling products, you'll need to also ensure that your products are Trade Agreement Act compliant. The list of countries that are Trade Agreement Act compliant can be found within the FAR, and this should also be monitored on a monthly basis. So countries that are not TAA compliant are going to be North Korea, Afghanistan, Syria, Argentina, Malaysia, Iran, your usual suspects there. However, you want to make sure that you're monitoring that because sometimes a country may pop on or fall off. So if you are selling a product that's manufactured in one of these non-TAA compliant countries, you're going to have to remove that from the schedule. Same thing with Ability One. This has a heartbeat and is a dynamic, not static list of products. Ability One falls under Department of Justice Unicor. It's under the prison systems. These are the products that the way I understand it is that the prisoners are manufacturing. So if they are making uniforms for firefighters, and that's what you're selling, then you want to make sure that there is not a conflict of interest there. You cannot sell products that they are selling. And again, they're going to add and remove products on an ongoing basis. So you need to have a mechanism in place to monitor, again, both TAA and Ability One. Product companies also need a letter of supply if you are not the manufacturer. So if you're the dealer or reseller, this is a GSA form. And I would highly encourage you, if you're thinking about getting onto the schedule, to run this letter past the manufacturer and ensure that they are willing to put their signature on the letter, on their letterhead, because if there's language that they disagree with, or they don't feel that they can maintain the terms and conditions that are listed there on that letter, that could be a deal breaker for you. On the services side, in the technical section of your proposal, if you're providing professional services, so you've got labor, people are kind of your product, you'll need your human resources plan, as well as an org chart, which somehow didn't make it to the slide. The HR plan, the only sections you need to extract are how overtime is paid and how and when your employees are compensated. The org chart should have names as well as job titles, and you want to make sure that those map back to whomever you've got listed as your quality control point of contact, and anyone else that's listed throughout your proposal. For software companies, you'll need your EULA, and that will sometimes there's a short delay with that after you send it to GSA. Just depends on how complex and cumbersome your actual agreement is. Okay, let me just pause there and then we'll talk about pricing. I just want to take a sip of water. And if there's anything that I should answer, Curtis, let me know. Okay, I guess not. So we will continue on here and forge ahead with pricing. As I mentioned a couple times, the main focus of the GSA schedule is for GSA to obtain your lowest price. So they basically conduct what I always say are two litmus tests. First is they will look at who are the companies, whether it's a company name or a category of customers, that always receive your best discounts. So those categories, whether it's all nonprofits, always receive a 20% discount, or Northrop Grumman, we just want to work with them to say, you know, just because we want bragging rights, so we always give them a 25% discount. So, and you may have a different most favorite customer for every single line item. It's usually not the case, but you may have a category for one for a widget. Widget A, you always give nonprofits a 20% discount. For a widget B, it's ABC company. So there's no, we'll say right or wrong answer. It's just how your company, it all depends on how your internal pricing policies and discounts are structured. These are standard discounts that GSA wants, equal to or better than. And by standard discounts, again, your sales reps, your BD people, your billing people know that nonprofits always receive a 20% discount, state and local always receives a 15% discount, or whatever it is. Non-standard discounts would be, oh, hey, you know, Joe Smith, our sales rep, just gave a 30% discount to Amazon because that was what we did just to win the business. It was a one-time spot discount. We know we're probably going to lose money on the deal, but again, we want the bragging rights. We want to be able to say that we sell to Amazon. So it's a one-time spot discount, and it doesn't make up the majority of your overall revenue. That is considered a non-standard discount. The reason that's important is because that will not be in play for GSA to negotiate with. So the second litmus test is, well, let me see if anybody has questions on standard and non-standard and that part of it.
No, scrolling. Not yet, Jennifer. I do got some questions for you though.
Okay. So let me just continue here on the pricing page. So now that we know the difference between standard and non-standard, the second litmus test that the GSA will conduct is they will look at your price proposal. What are you offering to them? Maybe you're giving them a 10% discount when your nonprofits are getting a 5%. So you're like, hey, we're giving you 5 additional percentage points over our lowest price customer. But if that dollar amount is much higher than the other schedule holders, you're going to be in for a big surprise. To avoid being in for a big surprise, we highly encourage you to look at the GSA schedule holders. It's public information, and look at their pricing versus the pricing that you want to propose. So I've got some screenshots on where you can go to do some homework on that. But just keep that in mind, that you do have the ability to conduct that research and that homework, and I highly, highly, highly encourage that you do so. Also, part of the pricing proposal package is going to be your invoice justification. So for each and every single line item that you propose, if you've got a program manager level 1, a program manager level 2, and a program manager level 3, those are 3 distinct job titles. Or if you've got, you know, various widgets, then you'll need an invoice for each of those. In the event that you don't have an invoice, you can use proposals or quote sheets. I'm not a big fan of that at all, because it will give them some pause, some hesitation. And a stronger proposal is one that goes in with invoices. It shows that you're an operating company, that you've got clients, you're invoicing your clients, and you've sold this thing, this service, this software, whatever it is, thousands of times. In some ways, maybe that is a short-sighted perspective, because if you've got new technology that you're developing that hasn't quite hit the market, or maybe it's only in a proposal and you haven't sold it yet, then fine. So yes, there are certainly exceptions. The price proposal template, everybody will have to complete this, whether you're selling products, services, or software, but the templates will vary for each of those. So again, on sam.gov, when you go to the solicitation, you can certainly download the correct spreadsheet for your template for your price proposal. Okay, so the invoice justification, I mentioned that, price proposal template. Okay, and then also a price list. You'll either have your commercial price list, which is the CPL commercial price list, or market rates. Commercial price list, most of the time this will be what product companies have. Here's the product, here's the price. There's usually not anything to negotiate or haggle with, unless there's volume or volume discounts or quantity discounts. Market rates, sometimes, not always, professional services companies will have rates that fluctuate based on sometimes geographic location, sometimes economic conditions, whatever it is. So you'll submit your price list, and this will also dictate the type of the worksheet within the price proposal template that you're going to use. Your economic price adjustment, the EPA, is the component of the pricing section that identifies how you will be increasing your prices, your GSA prices, once you're on the schedule. I really don't want to talk about that today. We're going to save that for tomorrow, because the pricing piece is the most complex, but just know that this is something that is part of the pricing section. If anyone on the line has looked at anyone's price list on GSA, you'll notice that some companies just have their prices displayed for a 12-month period, where other companies have it displayed for 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out, 20 years out. And what dictates that is kind of what direction you go on the EPA, and there's some options there. Additional component of pricing is the CSP. It's the commercial sales practice. This is going to be extracting information from your financials as well as your projected sales. It's really the most important piece, and it's actually filled out within the GSA e-offer system. The other piece that it covers is any deviations in your pricing and your discount. So it really gets to the nitty-gritty of who's getting your best discounts, what are you offering GSA, and do you ever deviate from that? We'll talk about that in much more detail tomorrow. Bring your coffee and make sure you're alert for that one. Once you are on the GSA schedule, so post-award, you're on the schedule, you've got a heartbeat, your GSA awarded price is only a price ceiling. So you cannot offer anybody through the schedule a rate higher than your GSA rate. In fact, you're actually encouraged to give discounts through your schedule. You cannot give discounts outside of your schedule, but through your schedule, you're encouraged. Outside of your schedule, you can go higher. Through your schedule, you cannot go higher. Okay, I'm going to pause here because I've got a lot of, and I think we're okay on time. I was getting a little worried, but I think we are good. I still have a couple of things to cover, but Curtis, I'll see if you've got something for me.
Yeah, I got a few questions for you so we can knock some of them out.
Okay.
And this was from earlier. Somebody asked that their firm, it provides architect engineering services through NAICS 541330. In reading the schedule, it appears that there's language that excludes A&E services. Are our services excluded from all schedules?
So from all schedules, no. There may be some departments out there may have A&E schedules. Construction is not on the GSA schedule, but I know that there are some engineering labor categories within some of the various SINs that actually some of our clients have. So you'd really have to, I would pull up the spreadsheet of SINs and just do a keyword search for engineering or architecture and see what comes into play there. They're not going to be exactly, let's say, architect or engineering, and I don't have that list right in front of me, but happy to help this individual offline if they want to shoot me an email.
So thank you. What differentiators are SIN? What are the differentiators from SINs and NAICS?
So SINs are just numbers, the numbering alphanumeric system that GSA has contrived that somewhat mirrors NAICS codes. They're similar, but they're not the same. So every SIN is going to have a NAICS code associated with it. The important thing to remember is that if you're going to apply for the GSA schedule to get on, then you want to make sure that within sam.gov that whatever SIN or SINs you're pursuing, that you also have those NAICS codes listed in your sam.gov record, and that you've got past performance that's related to those SINs and NAICS codes. They're different. They're not the same. They're similar and they're related.
Awesome. Thank you. So one of the challenges they have found is how do they purchase? So example, they said that from a given agency is easily found by NAICS. Yet, as you pointed out, the SINs are and can be different from the NAICS. Is there a specific way to determine who purchases what as it is related to SINs via GSA schedule?
Yes, and that's the kind of chapter that we're going to dig into here on recommendations and, more importantly, resources. So I'm going to give you guys some sites that you can go onto to conduct your homework. Also, there's plenty of data aggregators that are out there, companies that aggregate federal data that make it easier for you to conduct these research activities. They typically charge a monthly fee, or you can, again, do it yourself.
Awesome, thank you. And let me see, two more. Somebody asked about templates. If you search in the GSA database and find businesses that have completed their SBA profile, you can see a good template for reporting past performances. And that was related to somebody else's question earlier. So thank you for that.
Sure. The past performance template for GSA has nothing to do with SBA. So you need to get it from the solicitation, the GSA solicitation. They have very specific questions that they want for your past performance.
I think they were saying that they haven't completed the SBA profile. I'm not sure. But project experience, can this be a subcontractor who already has a schedule? Project experience, can this be as a
Yep, on the
subcontractor?
project experience for the SINs, let me go back to see here. So here, the SIN specific requirements, again, your past performance for this can be a contract with a church. It could be with McDonald's. It could be with Northrop Grumman. It could be with Department of Commerce. It could be with the Army. It could be with Raytheon. It could be with the VA. It could be with anybody. Past performance here is past performance. So it doesn't matter if it's federal, a nonprofit, an association, a church, state and local, a university. Past performance is past performance is past performance. Same thing with your invoices. Doesn't matter if it's an invoice from Purple Heart Association that you did work for, or St. Stephen the Martyr Church, or Texas A&M University. An invoice is an invoice is an invoice.
Right. Thank you. And last one until the end, because we do have some more.
Okay.
If you are a reseller of distributor of a product and you are using a distributor to sell a product, how do we get the letter from the manufacturer?
Well, you have to contact the manufacturer. So whoever the manufacturer of the item is that you want to sell, you'd have to get a letter from them authorizing you to be the dealer reseller. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about recommendations and resources. So as I've mentioned, kind of an overarching theme here is also just using data to make decisions. Don't get on the schedule and say, I don't have any sales, because you'll end up like the other 60% of the companies on the schedule that have 0 sales, and you'll be a statistic and you've wasted a ton of time when you could have spent more time on the upfront portion determining who buys your products and services, how much, where do they purchase, when do they purchase, how do they purchase, and then just start going forward from there. So the more time and effort that you spend, in my opinion, on research, the more successful that you will be. Let the data drive where you spend your time, how you spend your time, the resources that you're going to deploy or employ to get you from point A to point B. We all have 24 hours in the day, so you want to make sure that you use your time wisely. So there was a slide a while back that was the pie chart that said this is how the federal government purchases, and I went through everything kind of on the left-hand side with the percentages. You should be able to do that for your product, service, or software. And if you don't know how to do that, then GSA is definitely not for you. You really need to learn how to speak federal government language, how to kind of navigate these systems before you go and get yourself onto a contract vehicle, and you'll be in over your head and you'll waste time, and you'll most likely get a letter from GSA more booting you off of the schedule. So use a little bit of more time up front doing this research, finding out how much of your specific solution is going full and open competition. That's open market. That's SAM.gov. How much is going through your specific SIN that you want to pursue, or SINs? What other contract vehicles are purchasing these products or services? Who are the vendors within the SIN? Which ones are large? Which ones are small? Large is companies are going to have to parse out a certain percent to small businesses for contracts that are valued at over $750,000. One strategy could even be just going after those large businesses. You don't even need to be on the schedule to be a subcontractor to them. The vendors within your SIN, what is their pricing? Are they all 15 to 20 percentage points lower than you, or even dollars? If that's the case, then most likely, comparing apples to apples, you're not going to be able to get onto the schedule with these higher prices. So why spend all this time and effort to and you can get these answers before you decide to start crafting your proposal response. How many vendors within your SIN have absolutely no sales? And why do you think you're going to be different? And maybe you are going to be different because you've done the homework, you've got a pipeline of opportunities, you've got at least 4 to 5 prospects that have told you, yes, we want to buy your solution, and yes, we'd like to use the GSA schedule to do so. If you're not there, this is way premature. If you're selling products or software, I would encourage you to go to gsaadvantage.gov and you type in the product that you're selling, and you go down your list and you say, here's the other companies that are selling these monitors. And, if your price is, $900, most likely GSA is going to laugh at you and say, Well, no, we can buy this for, on the low end, $582, at the high end, $683. If you're selling services, I encourage you to go to buy.gsa.gov and type in your labor categories. We've got a systems engineer with 5 years of experience and a bachelor's degree, and that average GSA rate is $126.42. If your person is priced at, $250 and you're going to offer GSA $200 and you think, yeah, we're giving them a heck of a discount, they're going to laugh at you and basically say, well, take the 126. Maybe you're lucky and you get 130. But do this homework before you decide to get onto the schedule, because a lot of times it's timing. In life, everything is timing. So build up your past performance, build up your relationships, continue to do your research. And then here is the site for anybody, products, services, and software, to do your special item number and schedule analysis. So the links are on all of these sites. And I think, Curtis, you are emailing these out to the attendees. We'll also put these on our website and our YouTube channel. But there's various reports that you can click on there. SSQ stands for Schedule Sales Query. And you can pull up some data there on the various SINs to find out kind of where you should be and how things look. So conclusions, anytime somebody calls us and says, hey, can you help us get onto the schedule? My first question is, why? Why do you want to get on? And if they answer, well, we've got some prospects that have indicated they want to buy our product, our service, our software through the schedule, or we've noticed that, we're a sub to, I don't know, Lockheed, and we see some of the RFPs that have come out. We know that we can respond to them. Like, those are the answers. Don't get on it and then don't get on and then call us and say, can you help us with sales and marketing? Like, you're doing it backwards. Definitely do your research up front and then let the rest kind of fall into place, because GSA may not be where the numbers fall. Maybe most of your work is being procured through full and open competition. So save your, couple $1,000s with a consulting firm or pulling your hair out doing it yourself, and invest that time and effort into maybe a proposal writer and a BD person if it's going full and open competition, or maybe it's all going to veteran-owned businesses or women-owned businesses or hub zone. Then explore partnerships, joint ventures, relationships there. Don't just get on GSA because GSA does a great job of marketing themselves. So a little bit repetitive, but it's worth repeating. Who is your customer? How do they prefer to purchase? And do you have opportunities that your prospects have indicated that they want to purchase from you through GSA? And did you do the homework on the pricing? Most companies typically have not. So do it to make an informed decision. So again, use the data to let that drive kind of where your actions, where your money is spent, where your time is spent, how you're going to be strategic. And I just say, kind of rinse and repeat. Like, in 6 months, the numbers may have changed. And your numbers may have changed. Your pricing may have, gone up, or maybe you're able to bring your pricing down. And so those are really my concluding remarks. And I'll stop there because I think we've got about 15 minutes here for questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. This was great. So now let's get to the Q&A, which we did some of it already. As for the letter of supply, or TAA, how it is shipped for an overseas shipment also have a letter requirement?
I'm not sure I understood the question. Sorry. Or maybe it got cut out.
Let's see. As for letter of supply, or TAA, with how it is shipped for an overseas shipment also have a letter requirement?
I'm not, if the person wants to maybe retype their question, but if you're selling products, and you are not the manufacturer, you will need a letter of supply from the manufacturer, and the product needs to be manufactured in a TAA compliant country.
Thank you. Many of the federal government data shows spending by NAICS versus SIN. How can a company determine which NAICS codes align to a given SIN?
Yep, that I had a screenshot of the SINs, and there's a column in there for the NAICS code. So that's what I would encourage you to look at. It's basically the screenshot that I had. I just added some color to it. You can download that from the GSA solicitation.
Thank you. And everybody will receive a copy of this slide deck tomorrow morning, just to let you know. Would a letter of supply be needed from any manufacturer a company may distribute for?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep, and again, I would encourage you to run that letter past them, because if they say, no, we're not going to sign this, then that's going to be a deal breaker. You won't be able to sell their products.
Got you. Thank you. Is there a way to find out the prices that competitors are charging for the services we offer?
Yep, that was the slides that I just showed. So I had the sample for the products and software, and then the sample website for services. And I'd encourage you, if you're selling services, if you've got a, let's say, project manager, you need to put in the parameters for minimum education and minimum years of experience. So that way you're comparing apples to apples.
Thank you. Can a small business compete with the larger companies that can offer a discount?
Sure, you can compete with anybody.
I like that answer. Does your pricing have to be the lowest compared to the competition?
No, there's two litmus tests. The first is giving GSA a discount that is equal to or better than your own internal standard discount. So for example, if you always give a 10% discount to state and local government, then GSA will want something that's equal to, preferably better than that. So let's say you give GSA 15% discount. The second litmus test, again, is I'd encourage you to do this before you decide to get onto the schedule, is do some research on the various websites, depending upon if you're selling products or services, to find out what's the average price for these same products or services. And so you want to be within that range as well. Oftentimes what happens is companies will give a discount from their internal most favored customer, but then that number is still a little bit higher than the GSA average. So just knowing that that information in advance, that there won't be any surprises with the price negotiations with GSA, because that's basically where they're going to go.
Thank you. Wouldn't providing a discount effectively lower the pricing in the organization's GSA schedule?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
It says, wouldn't providing a discount effectively lower your pricing in the organization's GSA schedule?
I'm not sure I'm understanding what they're asking. I mean, yeah, your GSA schedule rates are always going to be the lowest rates that your organization is providing. On top of that, it's a price ceiling. So as you bid for work through your schedule, you're going to be giving additional discounts on top of that. So your margins will be very, very thin. And sometimes companies aren't even profitable on the schedule. So this is why you really, really, really want to, I can't say it enough, do homework to investigate, research the rates of the other schedule holders, knowing that most likely that's kind of, where GSA is going to negotiate you down to.
Thank you. California is more expensive than Alabama for hourly rates. How do you differentiate by state or region?
Sure. So your internal pricing should be structured that way then. So if you've got customer service, say you're in the business of call centers and customer service reps, in Omaha, Nebraska, you can pay an hourly rate of $20 an hour for a rep. In California, let's say in LA, it's the same type of bachelor's degree, 5 years of experience, $35. Your internal pricing should dictate that, and you should have invoices to prove it. And then your GSA rates just would mirror those zones, however you have them structured.
Thank you. When looking at products, does GSA look at pricing comparative to the actual quality of items on their list?
Yeah, you can put in when you do your research and let's say everybody's, I don't know, a good 10 to 15 percentage points lower than you. If your product, I don't know, glows in the dark or has some special feature or technical capability or a higher quality, it's ISO certified, whatever it is, you would put that into your description and keep that kind of in your back pocket for the negotiations.
Thank you. Would you explain how past performance and past experiences are used, if any, for new companies?
So GSA does have programs for companies that are, we'll say, new and don't have all of the requirements. I usually encourage companies not to go down that route um, because you don't have the relationships. You don't have, most likely I bet I most likely bet that you don't have the past performance or relationships with prospects who said, yeah, once you get on the schedule, we're going to buy, $500,000 worth of your services. So there's really no sense, in my opinion, and I'm kind of tough love here with GSA, or people that want to get onto GSA and are kind of either new to federal contracting or just think that GSA is right for them. I would just throw the question back to the person, and I'm not trying to be flippant here, but how much is being purchased through the SIN that you want to go after? And I'm guessing you probably haven't done the homework. So in that scenario, I'd say it's probably premature. And I know I'm making assumptions, but if the person that asked the question, if you did have that answer and you do have prospects, then yeah, then you can take the springboard option and use executive past performance in lieu of project experience. But I don't know the actual numbers of the companies that these new companies that don't meet all of the requirements, that kind of take this route of how many of them have zero sales through their schedule. I would imagine it's more than the 60%, or they make up the bulk of that. And it's just reality. It's just a fact. I'm not, I guess yes, I am discouraging some companies from doing that, but there's always exceptions to the rule. And again, if you do have relationships, if you have done the homework, if you've done the homework on the companies within your SIN, how much is being procured through the SIN, your pricing, then yeah, I'd say go ahead and rock and roll.
Thank you. What is the target type of company would qualify for a springboard program?
So again, these are companies that don't have all of the past performance where you can use executive past performance. But again, I kind of wish I hadn't even said it, because it's usually 98% of the time, in my opinion, it's not in the company's best interest. The best way to leverage the springboard is actually joint ventures, because a joint venture is going to be a new entity, a new LLC, a new tax ID. Typically, the most successful JVs are between two entities that both have significant past performance and complement each other. And so with that new entity, the new entity is not going to have past performance, but you can use the past performance from the two LLCs or the two entities. So in those scenarios, I say, yeah, that springboard we're glad it's there.
Does being a VOSB or SDVOSB or woman-owned be an advantage on the GSA schedule, or only for set-asides?
No, I think I really would not lead with your set aside, lead with your merit. What do you do? I had a quote once from one of the OSDBUs, the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization. Uh, and there were a group of OSDBUs and SBLOs, small business liaison officers from the corporate side, all kind of serving the same function where they are advocating for small businesses. And it's not that they can't find enough women-owned small businesses, they can't find enough veteran-owned, they can't find enough hub zone, they can't find enough 8A, they can't find enough, name the checkbox. The problem that they have is finding companies that have the technical merit, that have the past performance. So stop leading with, hi, we're a women-owned business, or hi, we're a veteran-owned, or hi, we're a hub zone. Like, okay, great. So are thousands of other companies. What have you done? Like, that's really what you should lead with, your merit. Don't lead with something that is, in some ways kind of out of your control. You'll stand out more leading with your capabilities, your past performance, the work that you've done, than you will with, that is just kind of a cherry on the top. Like it's great. Okay, good. But no one's going to give you a contract just because, you really want to earn it based on your merit.
Got you. Thank you. Couple of more. We have 3 minutes left.
Yep.
If thin margins, why do GSA?
Except, well, maybe that's how your customer prefers to purchase. You don't have to. It's one of many, 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 many options. You can go find opportunities through full and open competition. You can look at set aside, simplified acquisition, OTAs, sole source. I mean, the list go on and on and on. So do the homework first.
Is the discounts you're discussing on total end price, example, product taxes and shipping, etc., or discounting the price then, adding shipping and taxes as an additional charge?
Yeah, shipping, taxes, those are not on the GSA schedule. So we're just talking about whatever it is you're selling.
Thank you. Can you get on the GSA schedule as a logistics trucking service provider? We don't sell goods, but rather provide services moving freight. We are currently moving into military installations through large clients, but not government direct. Is this possible then through GSA?
Yeah, absolutely. I would just find the SIN number, but I would also say why. Do you have customer or people that you're talking to at the Army installations or military installations? Are they telling you that's how they purchase? Because they could be purchasing. Let me just go back again to really try to hammer in this point that here, like how much is being purchased through the special item number for logistics or whatever it is, anyone that's still listening, what's going full and open competition? You should have a number here. Department agency vehicles, those are going to be, there's like, a list of those, how much is going there, what's going through GSA. And if you look at GSA and the number comes back 500,000 and full and open competition is, 700 million, why are you going to compete with, 1,000 companies for $500,000 when there's a different avenue to go to, or a different agency vehicle? So again, do this first, find out where's the money going before you just decide to chase it because GSA does a good job of marketing themselves. That's my opinion. I've been doing this for 20 years, so I think spending the time on the research will serve you well. And the more time you spend, the more specific you can be, and you won't waste time on other solicitations that you're probably not going to win.
Awesome. And the last question for today. Well, no, we already answered that. So we finished. Well, last one was, how do your company help businesses? And somebody stated, where is that data provided that you just went over?
Yep. So again, back here on these sites, the D2D for the schedule sales query. You can find it on buygsa.gov, GSA Advantage, SAM.gov, USA Spending, FPDS.gov. If you don't know these sites, then GSA is you're premature. So how do we help companies? We help you from start to finish through negotiations, post-award. We can do bits and pieces. We can just do reviews. There's a variety of ways that we can work with companies to get onto the schedule.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for everyone in attendance. Really appreciate it, and I appreciate everyone's time. I hope
Great.
everyone have a wonderful day. I hope to see you guys tomorrow and the next day for part 2 and part 3. I ask that you please complete the survey at the end of this presentation. Let us know how we did today. We do take your valuable feedback. Important to make sure that we're providing the right information to you, and the presentations as well. Just be careful on the on the survey, as you'll see the first question that pops up. It will say strongly disagree, but if you do strongly disagree, that's okay. But if you don't, I'm just saying don't rush through it, so you can make sure you're making the right selection. But I hope everybody have a wonderful day. Yes, you will get a copy of this presentation and webinar I'm recording tomorrow, and I hope to see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Great.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Jennifer.
everybody.
Yeah, see you tomorrow, Jennifer.
Sounds good. Same time, same place.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
Right now, bye-bye.